Hi everybody, it's Rob Daywald and I'm over here to talk a little bit about the crime rate. Many of you that are in entry-level criminal justice classes, maybe 101, may come in without an understanding of the crime rate. In fact, the pervasive community belief by most people that you would talk to is that crime's out of control, just keeps going up and up. And a lot of this is just false information that you get from the media. So it's very important if you're going to work in this business to get a good handle on crime and what it's doing and how we know what it's doing. So I'm going to talk for a little while on some concepts here early in the class about crime and crime statistics and so forth. So right now what I want to show you is that crime from about 1930 through the 50s, 60s and so forth up to about 1970, crime was pretty stable. Okay? Well, what ended up happening about 1970, we got into a lot of drug-related crimes, and then you had other crimes like robbery, theft, and so forth that were in order to support drug habits and this type thing. And so this finally crested up here about 1990. Crime was just basically, it really was out of control. I mean, just in a, it was climbing everywhere. And then suddenly, for some unknown reasons, about 1992, crime started to go down, and it's gone down and down until it's basically back where it was about 1970. Now you may say, well, how do we really know that? Because there is this other concept that we're going to have to put up on here. And that concept is known as the dark figure of crime. Okay? And we ask ourselves, well, what do we mean by the dark figure of crime? Well, basically what we mean is this is what we call unreported crimes, okay? For example, there are a lot of cases of rape, for example, that are never reported. Somebody's too embarrassed, they're ashamed, they're afraid, they don't want to have to go to court, they don't want to have to confront the defendant in the case, so they just don't report the crimes, okay? So what we've done here in terms of statistics, we have two main sources of statistics, and those are the UCR and the National Crime Victim Survey, okay? And so this is a Uniform Crime Report. And then this one here, we call it the National Crime Victim Survey. Now, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that this one started in like 1930, and what ended up actually happening is the International Association of Chiefs of Police formed a group to collect data from other people, other police agencies all over the United States and Canada. So basically what they're trying to do is develop a systematic way to keep track of crimes that are, in order that they can help each other with information. Well, what happened is the next year, Hoover from the FBI stepped in and said, let us, support this for you with federal money so that you can, collect this data and turn it over to us, and then we'll do the reporting and so forth. So this has been handled by the FBI and the Department of Justice ever since. However, in the 1960s, another group came forward, and this was graduate faculty in sociology and in criminal justice. And they're like, sitting around smoking dope, and they're like, hey, we don't trust the man. This is after all the 60s. And so they're like, we don't really trust what the FBI is telling us. We think that they're skewing the information for whatever reason. So we're going to start our own system. And so this was an independent system called the National Crime Victims Survey. National Crime Victims Survey. And so what it is that periodically, once a year, they contact different people, and then they contact them again like 6 months later, and they ask them, you know, simple questions like, have you ever been the victim of a crime? And so then they go into detail, you know, what would that crime be? And so they try to, you know, fit that in. So a lot of things that were shown as the dark figure of crime as being unreported crimes have not shown up in the UCR, but they are showing up in the National Crime Victims Survey. So as a result, we are getting a better handle on crime today than we did back in the 1930s. And so basically the way this works now is that in the early days, this was being run by independent people. Well, what ended up happening is the Census Bureau has taken this over, and so they use a lot of their census people to support this National Crime Victims Survey. So here again, it's a good systematic approach to collecting information, but it is a survey. It is not exhaustive. It is where they pick random people, ask them questions, and they try to expand on that survey result. So in other words, I'm going to erase this now. What we end up with is they talk to 1,000 people, and then they have to project that to 300 million people, okay? So they figure it out based upon the crimes per 100,000. So it's a mathematical calculation that they do. So when we make that drawing that we made in the beginning, where we showed a line like we did here, well, this is the UCR, okay, and then this is the UCR, okay. Well, along the line here, 1970, this is 1930, then there's another line, and it's a line that's out here, okay, and this is the NCVS, okay, okay, so what am I telling you? Well, the estimate on the UCR is too low because this is only reported crimes, crimes reported to police, okay? And this is crimes that are disclosed by victims to the Census Bureau, okay? But what are we seeing here? Even though this is much higher, you know, this is much higher, it tops out about the same. So they're tracking. So what we think is that the real crime number is somewhere like this. So are you with me? So basically what we're saying is we're talking about trends. So what we're really saying is trends in crime right now are steeply declining, okay? Now, did you know that? Did you believe that? Or have you ever heard that? No, because that doesn't sell newspapers, okay? Now, one last thing I'm going to illustrate, and that's going to be it for this lesson. So let us say that we have this trend that we put together. And that is the average, okay, it's the average of the UCR plus NCVS, okay? So that's the average, all right? Now what has happened with jail and prison? Judges used to put people in jail or prison about like this way in 1930. But then shortly after, let's say in about 1975, There was an article, it was really a little bit later than this, around 78 actually. Martinson, nothing works. So basically, the attitude became very prevalent in society that nothing works, that there's no point in trying to rehabilitate anybody that gets in trouble. So they just started to say, well, the only thing we can do is incapacitation. So the judges, generally speaking, started putting people in prison. Okay? And so what has happened is, even though crime has been going down in here all this time, imprisonment is still going up. So our prisons are still packed full with people, and many southern states, for example, continue to throw people in prison when there's other alternatives available. And in a later episode, we're going to talk about the opportunities for community corrections that can work in our society, things that work in probation and some of these other areas, electronic monitoring or EM. That's another lesson that we're going to take up next time. So thanks for paying attention. Always feel free to contact me. You can always, email me, robdaywalt@me.com. robdaywalt@me.com if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.